Welcome back to Digging into the Bible. This week we're continuing through chapter 17 of Genesis, beginning at verse 15. Now we're getting into the specific promise with regard to the birth of Isaac. Verse 15, and God said to Abraham. I'm in this bad habit here, isn't it? You've been used to saying Abram. I got to break that because it's Abraham now. As for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her Sarai, but Sarah. Now she's being renamed. Shall be her name. Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her, and moreover, I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she will become nations. Kings of peoples shall come from her. And Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said to himself, shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? Shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, oh, that Ishmael might live before you. God said, no, but Sarah, your wife, will bear a son. And you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his offspring after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I will bless him and will make him fruitful and multiply him greatly. He shall father 12 princes, and I will make him into a great nation. But I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you at this time next year. God is specific now. It's going to happen next year. Abraham pleads on behalf of Ishmael. Just bless him. He's been getting this promise for years from God that his offspring, his child is coming. And God says, no. I will bless Ishmael. I've listened to you and I will bless him. Yes. Princes will come from him. A great nation will come for him. Yes. But this time next year, Sarah, your 90-year-old wife, will have a son. Sounds crazy. I can imagine why Abraham was laughing at this point. It sounds laughable. Except the thing is, with God, even the laughable is perfectly plausible. Continuing at verse 22, when he had finished talking with him, God went up from Abraham. Then Abraham took Ishmael, his son, and all those born in his house, or bought with his money, every male among them of Abraham's house, and he circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that very day. And God had said to him, Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, and Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. That very day Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised, and all the men of his house, those born in the house and those bought with money from foreigners, were circumcised with him. So they fulfilled the promise. God says, mark yourselves as part of this covenant. And so they did. Now we're going to continue into verse 1 of chapter 18. And the Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the door of his tent. In the heat of the day, he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the earth and said, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree, while I bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh yourselves. And after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. So they said, do as you have said. And Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, quick, 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man who prepared it quickly. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate. This is hospitality. To some degree, this is just typical hospitality. It sounds extravagant to us, but Abraham is a wealthy man, and he is sharing that wealth with travelers. He's treating them well. It continues, verse 9. They said to him, where is Sarah, your wife? And he said, she is in the tent. And the Lord said, See, at the beginning of this, I'm not precisely sure if Abraham understood. Maybe he did. Maybe he understood that there was someone special here. And maybe this is just typical Middle Eastern hospitality at this point. Or with all the encounters that Abraham has had with God, maybe he sees something. This is a theophany of some kind. This is God walking among us, appearing to Abraham. See, I did it again. I keep doing this. The Lord said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, shall have a son. And Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, 190, 100 years old, 90 years old, advanced in years. The way of women had ceased to be with Sarah. In other words, this is not likely. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, after I am worn out and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure? In other words, really? You've been promising this all this long, Lord, and now is when this is going to happen? Oh, come on. I don't blame her for laughing. It makes total sense to laugh at this point. And yet this is another instance where God is doing the impossible, and he's doing it in an impossible way, specifically so that we understand, yeah, by nature it's impossible. By God's nature, it is absolutely possible. The Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old? Is there anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time, I'll return to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. He said, no, but you did laugh. Yeah, I'd be a little nervous if I get called out. I'm laughing at the promise of God, and you get called out on it. Yeah, I'd be a little nervous about that. Then the men set out from there, and they looked down toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to set them on their way. The Lord said, I shall hide from Abraham what I am about to do, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have chosen him that he may command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so that the Lord may bring Abraham what he has promised him. Then the Lord said, because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and their sin is very grave, I shall go down and see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry that has come to me, and if not, I will know. So we start to see there's problems coming. God has made a promise to Abraham. He's put a very specific time frame to this promise. And then a quick segue, and God is looking ahead, and he's sending his angels, and he is going to go check out what's happening in Sodom and see what trouble there is brewing. And we will check out what trouble is there next week when we jump into the latter half of chapter 18. God bless.